Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for logging on today and joining us for the new Route to Market International DTC presented by Gliding Eagle in partnership with Commerce7. And I'm here with Adam Ivor. So thanks so much for coming. I'm Tessa Davies, Commerce7's Growth and Event Marketing Manager. We've been putting on these expert partner webinars for a while now in an effort to continue to provide free quality content and maintain the great relationships we have with our partners. And I'm very excited for today's. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. If you have any questions at all during Adam's presentation, just go ahead and put it in the Q&A box at the bottom. We will have time to go through questions at the end, so please ask away. This session is also being recorded, so if you didn't want to take notes, you don't need to. We will send you the video so you can play it back. I won't delay us any further. Here's your presenter, Adam Ivor, co-founder and VP of Winery Sales for Gliding Eagle. Take it away, Adam.
Tess, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Great to be here today. I appreciate the time and work you guys put into this. Commerce7 has been a great partner for us over the last, 5-6 years, and we enjoy working with you. So I appreciate all the participants joining us today. Let's jump into it. I'm going to share my screen here. All right, so the new route to market, international direct to consumer, and we at Gliding Eagle, we started back in 2015, kind of saw the writing on the wall of the developing routes to market, looking at kind of domestic, started with distribution and then moved into direct to consumer. And then we saw international kind of going the same way, where you have international B2B distribution, maybe an importer, distributor overseas, and kind of thought the next logical step is international direct to consumer. And we started with the largest market in the world, also the most difficult to access, being China, mainland China. And we did Hong Kong as well, but about 40 trips to China over time, and figured out how to deliver wine as fast and efficiently as possible from the winery here directly to an individual's hands in China. And since then, it's been growing. So let's jump into it right now. What are we going to talk about today? Number one is international direct-to-consumer, kind of the opportunity. We see it as a blue ocean strategy. There's not a lot of wineries doing it. We have grown that, helped to grow that over the last 7 years, 8 years. And as a leader in the space, we have learned a ton by doing this. So I'm here today to kind of share what we've learned. We're going to talk about the opportunity in the new channel. We'll look at some real metrics. I dove deep into some of our metrics, and we're going to peel back the curtain and look at some of the fun, interesting metrics we've discovered over time while doing this. I'll show you some real examples and winery success stories that are doing it. And then we'll talk about, okay, great, I see the opportunity. I see some of the success stories. How do we implement this new channel? And we'll look at that as well. As Tessa said, if you got questions along the way, go ahead and drop them in the Q&A down at the bottom of your screen. All right, let's jump into it. So when I founded the company with my partner, Jack Dewan, we looked at the traditional international B2B export-import distribution model. We saw that it was super fragmented and murky. My background, I'm born and raised in Napa and Sonoma. I went to Fresno State for enology and chemistry, and I spent more than a decade making wine with Michael Spaciani in Napa and Sonoma. And realized when I spent 2 or 3 years of my life on a bottle of wine, I would have a foreign buyer or importer purchase a container of wine, which was a great purchase, right? It's a nice sale. But after putting all that hard work into a bottle of wine, it would go into a container, and then I would have no idea where it went. Kind of went into this black hole. It just disappeared, and I had no idea what they were selling it for, if they were doing deep discounts. Why would an individual overseas purchase my wines. They don't necessarily know me or my brand story. And super fragmented, right? So a ton of people, ton of companies in between me and the consumer were touching the wine. Every time that wine moved, there was opportunity for loss, for breakage, for counterfeit. And I was also only getting paid, FOB or maybe half of retail for my wines. So we looked at the model and we saw it as the single largest growth opportunity in the wine industry today. That's a big statement. I ask wineries, I don't think that they can triple their wine club overnight. For example, if you're a new winery, we can grow international DTC fairly quickly. There's a lot of opportunities there. Every route to consumer, every path to purchase to consumer that you have domestically for direct to consumer, and I'm talking about visiting the tasting room, wine clubs, inbound phone sales, inbound email sales, corporate gifting, even online tastings, virtual tastings, all of those paths to purchase for your domestic consumers can be replicated or duplicated for the customer base overseas. And that greatly opens your market. We also looked at the efficiencies of transit time. So typically it would take 60 to 90 days on the water, depending on the destination. It takes time to clear customs for the B2B model. And we said there's got to be a more efficient way to do this. So we started working with FedEx. We tested UPS, DHL, a few others, but really stuck with FedEx because they hold control of the wine every step of the way with their planes and trucks. And we saw we could deliver wine from Napa, Sonoma to Hong Kong, for example, Japan in 2-3 days, the UK 2-3 days. So versus 60 to 90 days, which also can have effect on wine quality during that transit. You don't know necessarily know the storage conditions of that wine. If you can deliver it in 2 or 3 days, it's super efficient. Wineries were getting paid more than FOB or half of retail, right? You're getting paid maybe 80, 90, 100% of retail. And the consumers are paying less. So once the importer or distributor in the B2B model got the wine, and then it went to retail and finally the end consumer's hands, depending on the country, they were paying 2.5 up to 4x sometimes US retail. So we believe that international direct to consumer is the most efficient model, and efficiency will win over time. Cool. So the opportunity, I'm not going to read the slide. I think there's a couple things that were interesting to me, at least when I was doing the research, that 96% of the world population lives outside the US. And we may have some Canadian wineries here too, but only 1% of US businesses export. I thought that was pretty interesting. So again, what we found by doing this was we were delivering wine overseas to the top 5% of wealthiest consumers in the world. That is the top consumer base in the world, and our clients wanted to have access to those people. It's not every consumer has the ability to purchase, $1,600 worth of wine and pay $300-400 to have it delivered in 2 or 3 days halfway around the world by air. Pretty interesting. Right now in the US, we're looking at a lot of inflation, possible recession. And if there's inflation in the US or there's a recession in the US, then it makes wine more affordable for overseas buyers. So it's kind of a nice bucket to have if you go into a recession and the US consumers are not buying as much wine. And also some market diversification is always a good thing on the business strategy side of things. So kind of the opportunity that we see looking at some of these numbers with a global market, wine market of 420 billion in the next couple of years. Cool. All right. So if you're sitting there thinking, okay, I see the opportunity, not many people are doing it, it's a blue ocean strategy, I can start to develop a global brand. Maybe I can complement my international B2B sales. And I'm not saying don't do B2B distribution overseas. You need to do it just like maybe in the US, but you need to have kind of an omni-channel distribution. So you can support your brand and support your importers and distributors overseas by doing international direct to consumer. So a couple thoughts that you might be having. Number one, I get a lot is I can't compete with my importer or distributor overseas. You know, they're my brand partner. I work hard with them to develop the brand, and I don't want to step on toes. And I've got this a lot. Whether you have an importer or not depends. But for those who do, I always look at the progression domestically. And I always ask my winery clients, hey, do you have a distributor in Texas or in New York? And they say, yeah, of course we do. Okay, cool. Then I say, do you have wine club members in Texas or New York? Or do you allow people to go to your website and purchase and direct ship to Texas and New York? And they say, yeah, of course we do. So I don't believe that it's much different when looking at international, right? You may have an importer distributor in Taiwan and you can direct ship to Taiwan. There's ways to get around it. You can do different SKUs, right? Winery only SKUs. You may be able to ship direct to consumer internationally wines that you don't distribute through your importer. Library vintages, large formats, things like that. So, and there's been many studies actually that have shown that it doesn't necessarily compete, the omni-channel distribution doesn't compete, but actually is better for the brand and actually can help your importer and distributor sell wine. Kind of a rising tide floats all boats type of situation. Next one I get sometimes is, oh, we're too small, we're a small winery, I don't have the wine or I don't have the staff. It's too complicated. And I've heard that a lot. And when we were starting out, we weren't sure how it was going to go, but now we have extremely successful wineries that are making 3, 4, or 5,000 cases, really small production, even less, that have developed global brands. And you never know. I mean, maybe the owner has foreign ties. There's lots of ways that people discover your brand from overseas, even if you're small. And the next one is the demand doesn't exist. And that one has been interesting as well. So I've had wineries tell me that, oh, we just don't see the demand. We don't have the requests. And sometimes that was from management or upper management, but they didn't know that their team was actually getting inbound emails or visitors on the ground level. And what we found was that actually it's kind of a chicken and egg scenario. Once we onboarded wineries and we did some staff training, the people on the front lines who were doing the sales actually were able to say, yes, we can sell to you overseas. And after a year of seasonality, then we started to see actually the demand is there. Most people just weren't paying attention to it or didn't have a way to capitalize on those inbound sales requests. So kind of interesting. Number 4, excuse me, we don't have an export license. So I can't speak to Canada, unfortunately, I apologize, but in the US, you don't actually need a special permit or license to ship direct to consumer internationally. So in the US, you have the TTB, and you have, if you're in California, the ABC, or the Liquor Control Board. Those entities and organizations only have jurisdiction over the US or over the state. So when we got started and we talked to them, they said, look, if you're selling overseas, we don't care. We're here to protect consumers in the US or in the state of California or whatever. If you're selling overseas, then really the burden of paperwork and compliance comes at the importing country. So kind of good news, you don't have to have any special license, at least in the US, to export overseas direct to consumer. Okay. Let's see. Moving on. So where can we ship? think we're up to 37 destinations and counting. And we spend a lot of time traveling the world. We'll go to the U.S. embassies in these countries. We meet with the U.S. Department of Commerce. We meet with the U.S. Department of Ag, and we'll do a lot of test shipments as well. We'll put USB temperature data loggers in boxes when we're developing a new destination or a new shipment channel, and we'll get that temperature data as well. So the ones in bold, Hong Kong, China, Japan, UK, Canada, those are from the US, those are our top 5 major markets. Of course, we ship to the other destinations as well, but if you're thinking about doing this and implementing the new channel, it can be daunting if you say, oh, I got to onboard, 37 destinations right now. You don't have to do that. I know Commerce7 and their software, they support address verification at a ton of destinations, which is awesome as a partner for you guys. But I always like the crawl, walk, run type of scenario, right? So you don't have to roll out 37 global destinations right now. Even if you rolled out, 2 or 3 of these to start, you can roll out more over time. But the ones in bold are our top destinations by number of orders as well as value of wine shipped. Okay. Some fun stats. We've been doing it for, like I said, about 6-7 years, and we passed $15 million in total export value to about 37 destinations for over 300 wineries. I think we've done maybe 800 different brands overseas. But interesting things to look at is the average order size here, 16 bottles of wine. It's over a case of wine. And I talked with our partners over at Ship Compliant and got the average domestic order size, and it's 4 bottles. So that means that international direct-to-consumer orders that we're seeing are 4 times the size of domestic orders. Also, the average order value, about $1,600. So you do some quick math, average order size is 16 bottles, average order value about $1,600. That'll tell you that the average bottle price that we're shipping direct to consumer overseas is about $100. It works, the model works for wines, usually about $40 and up as the purchase price. Less than that, the model doesn't really work if you're down in like $10, $20 a bottle or less. It just doesn't pencil to ship that wine halfway around the world in 2 or 3 days. So super interesting here, 16 bottles, average order size, a delivery time of about 4 days. Again, it depends on the destination. We say anywhere from 2 to 10 days. Typically, we like to under promise and over deliver. That gives us a little bit of wiggle room if there's some delays in there, but average delivery time to those 37 destinations I showed you about 4 days, which is super fast. Some wineries tell me that they can't deliver to New York, for example, in that amount of time. Cool. All right. So typical new winery revenue, we crunched a bunch of data from new wineries rolling out the channel, and we wanted to make it based on winery size, so it was relevant. Smaller wineries, and this is just starting out, $1,000 to $3,000 a month in new revenue. Medium, $3,000 to $8,000. Large, typically over about $8,000 a month. So, large wineries, you're looking $100,000 a year or more, depending on the brand, up to $500,000, $1 million a year is new revenue. Even for a small winery, it wouldn't be bad to have new $1,000 a month or up to $36,000 a year. That's almost paying for another person on the staff on the team. And another kind of interesting fact we found was that on average, about 20%, which I thought was high, but surprised me, about 20% of all international customers repurchased. They had a good experience. They know maybe they can't get these wines locally. Maybe they visited you, or they joined the wine club, and high repurchase rate for these folks. And we'll touch more on that in an upcoming slide. I showed you the average order size, about 16 bottles for all of our destinations, but I wanted to break it down a little deeper by Asia, Europe, and other destinations. Again, these are 750 mils. Average order values you can see, and typical delivery time. Again, using FedEx, everything's fully insured, door to door. It's a white glove service. Most destinations, we prepay the duties and taxes. We do all the export paperwork and the import paperwork, and it gets delivered to their door pretty quickly. There's a few destinations where the recipient must pay the import duties and taxes themselves. For the folks up in Canada, that's you guys. Depends on the province. The duties and taxes differ depending on the province you live, but Canada does not allow us to prepay the import duties and taxes on your behalf. That payment has to come directly from you. I think South Korea is also similar. Cool. All right. This is actual one of our clients that we brought on back in 2017. About medium-sized winery. I want to say they were like between 30, 50,000 cases, somewhere in there. And you can see some of the numbers that they were able to do. And really, staff training is critical. Some education, using some tools to get the team the knowledge they need to be able to just say yes. You know, somebody says, hey, I want to ship some wine to Taiwan. Is it possible? It feels good. It's great to say, yes, absolutely, we can do that. We have a way to do it, and it's easy. Here's how it's done. So this is a real winery. This happens to be in Napa, and we worked with them to get the onboarding done in March 2017. All right. So now you've seen kind of the opportunity, the potential there to grow the new channel. We've seen some of the metrics or some of the why you might want to think about developing your new international direct-to-consumer channel. And let's talk about how to do it. Cool. So the first one is just increasing your conversion to purchase. And I put tasting room here. That is true for, like I mentioned earlier, your tasting room visitation for people overseas. You got to increase that conversion to purchase. Inbound phone sales, inbound email sales, you can increase those conversions to purchase. It's kind of the lowest hanging fruit. That's why we like to start with it. You may have that potential sale already coming in, but you're just not capitalizing on it. So that's the first place to start, is to capture those sales. Next, we always suggest to develop an international wine club. And again, you can keep it simple. You can have, you know, one or two sets of wines that you ship out 1 or 2 times a year. You don't have to do it to 30 destinations. We're here to help you if you want, but develop a simple international club. And, you know, we see it all the time. I'm sure you guys do too. If you have a wine club member who, you know, works for Google or something, and they get dispatched to go live in Singapore for a few years, and they don't want to cancel their club, you'd love to keep them in the club too. You know, now you have a way to do that. So increase your conversion to purchase for the tasting room and inbound sales. Develop an international wine club. Number 3, international corporate gifting and virtual tasting. So I think COVID has proven, you know, we're on a Zoom call now. Before COVID and the pandemic, people said, oh, well, it's harder for me to sell if people haven't visited. And what we found is that people were very successful doing virtual tastings. I'm sure you guys have done it yourselves. But what that does is now you can do virtual tastings with anybody around the world. And it opens your market greatly, your market potential. So virtual tastings around the world, ship them some wine, do the tasting with the winemaker or whatever. super successful. We've seen a lot of wineries do really well with that. Corporate gifting. Think about, Google, Deloitte, you name it, all the international companies that may have clients, partners, employees that they want to send gifts to. That is big, especially around the holidays. So if you can get in with a company or executive assistants that need to send some gifts around the world, another big opportunity there. Places like China, Japan, they have to have some gifts certain times a year for clients, family, partners, etc. Number 4, overseas online wine retailer partnerships. I'll give you an example here coming up, but what I did was I looked at, okay, in the US, we have like the wine.com, right? We'll just say they're the top online wine retailer for the US. What is the wine.com equivalent in the UK? What about the equivalent in Japan, etc.? So we partnered with them, asked our winery partners to give us like 3 to 5 different SKUs, create a 6-pack, put that 6-pack on their site. No inventory moves, no money moves. It's very clean, very simple. They put the wine on their site, they get an order, they send it to the winery. We get the 6-pack, ship it to the consumer in the UK or Japan in 3 to 5 days, and the retailer pays you. Really lean. I like the business model of that, and they have the consumer base in the market, so you don't have to worry about doing the marketing. They're going to do that for you. Maybe they've got 20-30,000 people they can send out email blasts to, etc. So another great opportunity for you there. And lastly, it's 2022. You can take those top 5 markets that I showed you earlier and make it so that when I go to your website, I can select Japan, put some wine in my cart, check out, have it delivered in 3 to 5 days. I put Google Analytics in there. It's also a nice way to see who's visiting your site and where they're visiting from, so you can target that. You can say, oh, we've got more visitors from Japan than any other destination. Maybe we should build in the ability to ship to Japan on our website. And I'll show you some examples of that coming up here as well. If you got any questions on those steps, put it in the Q&A. All right. Some potential revenue, and this was based on visitation. This was pre-COVID, but it's starting to come back. Some of the numbers are coming back, and we tried to be conservative. So we did small, medium, large winery, total visitation. And then we said, okay, if only 5%, like 5 out of every 100 visitors that came to visit you is international, then you'd have your number of international visitors here. Potential buying units, that was like a couple, husband and wife or family or whatever it is. And we would get to, if you only converted 10% of those potential buying units, so we took the 500 international visitors, divided it by 2, just for husband and wife or a couple or whatever, then you got 10% of that. So 1 in every 10 groups that were international purchased, with an average order value of $1,500, which is conservative. Those are potential new revenue. And this is just visitation, doesn't include inbound phone or email sales, online sales, anything else. So just a fun way to kind of break it down. I hope that makes sense for you there. All right. We talked about developing an international wine club, and I apologize, this is a little blurry. I tried to get a better version of it from Silicon Valley Bank. They put this out after they did their research, but at the bottom, this is wine club member retention times, and they have it by state, and then the British Columbia, et cetera. At the very bottom is international, and it's 45 months. And this really surprised me. So this is wine club member retention times. And the longest retention time of all was international wine club members with 45 months. It's almost 4 years. So Really interesting. And I think this speaks to that repurchase rate that we talked about earlier. So kind of a cool stat. Again, also really surprising to me when we did the research. All right, so I spoke about international online wine retail partners overseas. This is winebuyers.com in the UK. And we worked with Hess in Napa to get some SKUs up there. And again, when Wine Buyers gets an order of a 6-pack or a case, then they send it to the winery and to us, and we get the wine and do the fulfillment overseas. So it's really nice, especially when I visit Japan and some of the wine retailers in Japan, storage space is at a premium. Real estate is super expensive. So they don't have a ton of room to store wine. This way, they don't have to store it. There's no inventory risk. The consumer can pay less. The winery can get paid more. The online wine retailer makes their margin, and it's a super lean model. So kind of a nice new way to get into international markets. Again, these guys in the market know how to do the marketing. They have the customer base. You don't have to find it. You can partner with them, give them a little bit of margin for bringing the customer. Works out really well. Cool. All right. So then we talked about how to do international e-com on your website. And again, Commerce7 can help you out with this. I like to benchmark what other people in the industry are doing. I like to look at what people in the wine industry are doing, and I also like to look at outside of the wine industry. So I went to Dom Perignon's site. This is the landing page. The first thing you see if you go to Dom Perignon, and the first thing they ask you is to choose your country or region or destination. So immediately they want to know, where are you visiting from? And once they do that, if you select Japan, for example, it can take you to a Japanese site where everything's in Japanese, and pricing for delivery wine is all set and fixed, making it super easy for them to purchase, or the UK or whatever the destination is. So this is just one example of how Dom Perignon is doing it, because they want to tailor to people around the world and build an international brand. Cool. Then if we look outside of the wine industry, this is Stetson, like cowboy hats and Western wear, one of the famous cowboy hats out there. You go to, this is their homepage, you land on their homepage, and in the top right corner is where you can select your destination, where you live. It's just another way to do it. Again, looking outside of the wine industry. Either way, but again, you're identifying where your customer is in this global market, and it's only going to increase over time. So with that, I think we'll get into some key takeaways. I hope you guys found it helpful, interesting. Again, kind of a blue ocean strategy, right? It's a new route to market. We've been developing it over the last 6 or 7 years, but it's just the tip of the iceberg. You have literally thousands of wineries competing for the US market or the Canadian market. And there's a huge world out there, tons of money in places like Singapore, Japan, China, Hong Kong, UK. They're buying large orders, 16 bottles, about $1,600 average order value. So blue ocean strategy for a new route to market. It's pretty easy to implement. There's a little bit of staff training up front, but the cost is not great. Just like anything, you start with zero, and over time you start to build your market. Next thing you know, you've got 400 or 500 wine club members over 5 years. That adds up. So really not that difficult to implement. If you're going to build a brand, why not build a global brand? And you can, again, we talked about the omni-channel distribution. If you're doing domestic distribution to the provinces or states, and you do domestic DTC, if you're doing international distribution with a distributor, importer, you can also complement that with international direct to consumer. And that's going to benefit your brand. Number 4, do I need a special license or permit? The answer is no, you don't need any special license or permit to do this, which is awesome. The regulatory burden is on the importing country when you ship the wine into the country. A bonus, no sales tax on international orders. So the legality of that is where the individual takes possession of the wine. So, if we're in California and you ship to Oregon, you don't charge sales tax because there's no sales tax in Oregon. If you ship to Texas, you would charge Texas sales tax. If you ship to Japan, the country of Japan is not going to come back to you and ask for sales tax. They're not going to collect it. So no sales tax, depends on where you live, but, typically save between 6 and 10%, kind of a nice sales tool to let your team know that as well, to help cover the cost to get it home. All right. That is what I have for you guys today. I really appreciate you being here with me. I hope you found it informative. I hope you found it kind of interesting, something to think about. Hopefully it will benefit you at work, and maybe you can take it back and implement. My contact info is there. You can check out our website. And we love helping people do this. It's our passion. It's what we've been doing for the last 6 or 7 years. Please let me know how we can help, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Adam. That was amazing. Does anyone have any questions for Adam? Don't see anything in the Q&A box or chat yet. But if you do come up with any questions, Adam's email is right there if you wanted to follow up. We also have some more expert partner webinars coming up. Next week is Facebook and Google advertising. Week after that is email design trends. So in addition to today's recording, we will send you links to those in case you want to register. Thanks again to Adam and Gliding Eagle. This was fantastic. We really appreciate the time you've taken out of your day to teach us. So thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
Everyone, have a great rest of your week, everybody. Bye.